So today's deep dive is honestly about a complete, like a total urban rewiring. We are looking at this incredibly detailed publication from wikiresidents.ca and infodrone.ca, and it's titled The Rise of Biking on Nuns Island.
Right.
And our mission here today is really to figure out how a combination of high-tech transit, millions of dollars in investment, and these active mobility paths are essentially physically and economically transforming this single island community in Montreal.
Yeah, and what that actually reveals about the future of urban design everywhere, really.
Exactly. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because Nuns Island, or Ile de Sers, isn't just, throwing down a few painted bike lanes to appease, like, a vocal minority of cyclists.
No, not at all.
They are undergoing this absolute ground-up active mobility revolution.
Yeah, it is a complete paradigm shift. When you really look at the source material, you start to realize we aren't looking at just, incremental changes to urban flow.
Right.
It's a fundamental restructuring of how residents actually interact with their geography. And I think what sets this apart from typical municipal projects is that we aren't dealing in assumptions or like those aspirational surveys where people claim they might bike to work.
Oh, yeah, the surveys where everyone's like, sure, I'll totally bike, and then they never do.
Exactly. We are dealing with objective, automated data here.
Which is such a refreshing change of pace, honestly, because usually urban planning diagnostics are so murky. A city sees a traffic jam, so they add a lane.
Right.
Or they see a dangerous intersection, so they paint a crosswalk. It's very reactionary.
Very.
But on Nuns Island, the data is basically leading the charge. The island has installed these automated bicycle counters that track the actual physical movement of cyclists.
And the numbers they are pulling from those counters are just staggering. I mean, on the Nuns Island Bridge, in the Estacade counters alone, they are tracking over 900 cyclists per day.
Wow. 900 a day.
Yeah. And when you look at the cumulative daily passages across the two main axes, we are talking about nearly 2,000 trips every single day.
That's insane.
In a highly contained geographic area, yeah.
I want to look closely at that data collection for a second, because I feel like the technology itself changes how planners operate,
I can say absolutely.
These automated counters, which the text notes are often using a mix of like induction loops cut right into the pavement and infrared sensors, they don't care about your good intentions.
Right.
They don't care if you bought a really expensive bike and just left it in your garage. They only register actual real-world behavior.
And that behavioral reality is exactly what Benoit Granton focuses on.
Yeah.
He's a borough councillor in Verdun, cited in our sources, and he emphasizes that this objective data isn't just, trivia for some year-end report that sits on a desk.
Yeah.
It is the operational foundation for the island. Like, this data dictates how traffic lights are adjusted in real time.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. It dictates the precise location of future infrastructure, and it's used to constantly evaluate the efficacy of current facilities.
It's kind of like, I was thinking about this, it's like looking at the body as circulatory system.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Like the data is the pulse, right?
Yeah.
Telling city planners exactly where the infrastructure arteries need to be widened.
Yep.
Because if you have 2,000 blood cells trying to squeeze through a tiny unprotected capillary, you've got a major problem.
You have a huge problem, yeah.
So the counters provide the pulse so the city can surgically intervene before the system clogs, or, well, worse, before someone actually gets hurt.
The circulatory metaphor is highly appropriate here because, for decades, North American cities just relied on outdated assumptions.
Right.
The assumption was always, well, everyone drives, so all arteries must be built strictly for cars. But the data from Nuns Island proves that when you build a high-quality, dedicated artery for active transit, the flow naturally shifts.
Yeah.
And the scale of the active mobility network they've built to capture this flow is just massive.
So let's actually trace that network to give people a sense of the physical footprint, because it's big. You have the Recreation Park bike path, which extends over 14.9 kilometers.
Right.
You have 7 brand new Bixi bike rental stations integrated all across the island, which I think is a brilliant way to remove the barrier to entry.
Totally.
You don't even need to own or maintain a bicycle to participate in this ecosystem. You just rent one.
Yeah.
And then there is kind of the engineering centerpiece, the Samuel de Champlain Bridge bike path.
Yes, the 3.4-kilometer multi-purpose path.
Yeah. And the publication really notes this isn't just some scenic summer route for tourists.
Wow.
This path allows pedestrians and cyclists to travel safely between Montreal and the South Shore year-round. It connects straight from Nuns Island, starting at the Claude Robotel roundabout, which is right at the intersection of René Levesque Boulevard and Jacques Lebert Street, all the way over to the La Riveraine Path in Brossard.
And we have to stop on that year-round operational capacity because that is a massive detail that shouldn't be overlooked.
Especially in Montreal.
Exactly. Montreal winters are notoriously harsh.
Yeah, they're brutal.
So building infrastructure that supports active mobility in January requires serious engineering. It requires specialized snow clearing equipment and an ongoing maintenance budget.
Right.
It really signals a shift from viewing cycling as this fair weather recreational activity to treating it as a primary vital mode of transportation.
Yeah, I mean, think about your own morning commute. How often do you have automated objective data actively fighting for your safety?
Seriously.
Literally forcing the city to widen your specific route and plow it in the middle of a blizzard.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
On Nuns Island, the residents have that data advocating for them. But so, okay, the arteries are widened, right? But arteries only pump if there's a heart driving the pressure. What actually caused this sudden surge in daily ridership? Because people didn't just collectively wake up and decide to brave a Montreal winter on a bicycle for the fun of it.
No, they didn't. The behavioral shift was driven by a massive technological catalyst.
Okay.
We have to look at the arrival of the REM, the Réseau Express Metropolitan.
Right, the train.
Right. Regular service at the Nuns Island station began on July 31st, 2023. And it boasts a 3-minute regular service connecting Brossard directly to downtown Montreal.
Wow, 3 minutes.
Yeah. And what's fascinating here is how the REM completely rewired the concept of intermodal transit for this specific population.
Well, because the friction of intermodal transit is usually what kills it in North American suburbs, right?
Exactly.
Getting a commuter to switch from a bike to a train mid-journey is incredibly difficult because of what they call the sweat barrier.
Yes, the sweat barrier.
If you have to pedal 10 miles to get to the train, you're just going to drive your car the whole way. Nobody wants to show up to the office drenched.
Precisely. And the REM essentially removed that geographic friction.
Okay.
Residents no longer have to cross the river under their own power to get to work downtown. They only have to bike locally, like a few kilometers at most, to the REM station, lock up their bike, hop on a high-speed train, and arrive downtown in minutes.
That's amazing.
So the train is doing the heavy lifting, but the bike is solving the last-mile problem of getting from your front door to the station.
Wait, though, if you funnel thousands of local cyclists from their homes to a single train station every morning on an island grid that was, what, built in the 1980s?
Roughly, yeah.
Doesn't that just create a new, even more dangerous bottleneck? I mean, those older suburban grids were specifically designed to push cars outward to highway on-ramps.
Right.
They weren't built to pull thousands of bikes inward to a central pedestrian hub.
It's a logistical nightmare if left unaddressed.
Yeah.
Which is why the integration had to be so aggressive.
Yeah.
The arrival of the CREM fundamentally altered the transit axis of the entire island. You just nailed the physics of it.
Yeah.
The island used to be centrifugal, right? Pushing traffic outward to the edges.
Right, out to the highways.
Now it's centripetal, pulling everyone inward to the center. To survive that shift, the city had to actively rewire the street grid to absorb the new funnel.
So they basically had to build a capillary system that feeds the station safely, rather than just, dropping a multi-billion-dollar train station onto an incompatible road network and hoping for the best.
Exactly. That specific shift in the axis is exactly what justified the need for optimal connections toward René Levesque Boulevard and Jacques Lebert Street.
Ah, okay.
The planners used the automated counter data to anticipate the bottleneck and actually reallocate street space before the station became a death trap for cyclists.
Which means they had to deal directly with the existing infrastructure.
Yes.
To rewire that axis, they had to confront the old car-centric concrete that was already sitting there, actively blocking these new connections.
And not just blocking connections, but actively dividing the community.
You're right.
The source text describes the federal portion of the Bonaventure Expressway as a literal concrete barrier. And a history of mid-20th century infrastructure is just full of these barriers.
Oh, everywhere.
Highways were often slashed right through communities, severing residential districts from waterfronts, from commercial zones, and from each other.
But Nuns Island is actually tearing down these walls.
They are.
The reconfiguration of the Bonaventure Expressway is easily one of the most ambitious parts of this entire publication. Like, They aren't just repaving the highway, they are physically dismantling an imposing concrete barrier and turning it into a user-friendly urban boulevard.
And the physical and environmental scale of that transformation is profound. They are creating an 80,000 square meter green corridor alongside a 2.5-kilometer cycling and pedestrian link.
Let's just consider the physics of 80,000 square meters of new greenery in an urban space for a second.
It's huge.
You aren't just making it look prettier, you are actively reducing the urban heat island effect, you're absorbing ambient traffic noise, and you're managing stormwater runoff in a way that concrete simply cannot do.
No, concrete just sheds it.
Right. It's a multi-year ecological restoration. The text even points out that the final phase, which is dedicated entirely to the landscaping of this green corridor, isn't even scheduled to finish until 2028 or 2029.
Yeah, and while the federal and provincial levels are handling that massive expressway transformation, the localized efforts are happening simultaneously to ensure the island's internal grid actually hooks into this new boulevard.
Right. You need it all connected.
Exactly. The Nuns Island Owners and Residents Association, or APRIDS, has been heavily involved in tracking this synchronization. They noted that major sections of Nuns Island Boulevard underwent significant repaving in 2024.
And the continuous effort here is key, I think. They have plans running right through 2026 to fill in the missing links, specifically near Jacques Lebert Park, and to create a seamless riverside connection heading towards Point Nord. But here's where it gets really interesting. When you look at the totality of this, the tearing down of the expressway, the continuous paving, the vast green corridor, you realize the infrastructure is transitioning from a means of travel to an actual destination.
Yes. And that represents a profound shift in urban psychology.
Right.
For the last century, a transit corridor was considered a hostile environment. A road was just a space you endured to get from point A to point B.
Right. The faster you could escape the road, the better.
Exactly. But the publication explicitly highlights that these new active mobility paths are prioritizing recreation and sensory experience just as much as pure commuting utility.
Which is so cool. I mean, there are brand new rest areas being built directly along these routes, and the crown jewel of this seems to be the tribute belvedere to the Champlain Bridge.
Yes.
Let's just look at the juxtaposition of this specific spot based on the source details. Because it is located right by the river, but it's tucked directly behind a cluster of car dealerships.
Yeah, the irony there is great.
It is almost poetic, putting a nature-focused active mobility rest stop in the literal shadow of car culture monuments.
It really is. It commemorates the original bridge, but it is entirely designed for the future of the island. The sensory experience was clearly a primary metric in its design. You can sit there and watch migratory birds.
Wow.
The rest area features illuminated trees. It offers this sweeping, majestic view of the new Samuel de Champlain Bridge, which the text specifically notes is particularly striking during its nighttime illuminations.
Imagine the difference in your daily routine, though. You get off the high-speed ram after a long day at work, you hop on your bike, and instead of navigating some narrow, dangerous highway underpass with cars rushing past you at 60 miles an hour, you pull over at an illuminated riverfront lookout to watch the birds and the bridge lights.
It's night and day.
The quality of life upgrade is immeasurable, and this connects to the wider recreational grid, too. The source mentions the Estacade bike path, which is a crucial link of over 2 kilometers connecting Nuns Island directly to the St. Lawrence Seaway Dike.
Right. And the dike is typically open from mid-April to early December, and that specific path was completely renovated and enhanced in 2025. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are really looking at the concept of induced demand, but applied positively to community space.
Okay, let's break down how induced demand applies here, because usually we hear that term when cities build more highway lanes, right? Which just induces more people to drive, creating even worse traffic.
Right, that's the negative application of the concept.
Okay.
But positive induced demand works the exact same way. When you build high-quality, continuous, beautiful, active transit networks, you induce active mobility and community cohesion.
Ah, I see.
Structurally, these dedicated paths promote a healthy cohabitation of transport modes. By giving bikes, pedestrians, and cars their own optimized spaces, you dramatically lower usage conflicts.
Which translates to fewer accidents, less road rage, and a smoother flow for everyone, including the cars.
Exactly. And environmentally, the 2,000 daily crossings we discussed earlier represent a massive, trackable lowering of the local carbon footprint. But crucially, The text emphasizes the improvement in public mental well-being. By physically removing concrete barriers and replacing them with illuminated trees and river lookouts, the city is actively reinforcing the psychological health of its citizens.
Right.
They are reconnecting an isolated suburban population to nature and to the St. Lawrence River.
Well, let's look at the spreadsheet on this for a minute, because building 80,000 square meters of green corridor, installing illuminated lookouts, and running automated tracking systems, none of that is free.
No, definitely not free.
So who is actually footing the bill for this utopia, and what is the measurable return on investment here?
Well, the spreadsheet is incredibly complex because intermodal transit intrinsically requires cross-jurisdictional cooperation.
Right.
The stakeholders listed in the publication represent multiple tiers of government. So you have the Jacques Cartier and Champlain Bridges Incorporated, or JCCBI, which is a federal crown corporation.
Right.
You have the Communauté Métropolitaine de Montréal, the CMM. You have the City of Montreal, specifically the Verdun Borough. And you have Infrastructure Canada.
Honestly, aligning a federal crown corporation with local borough councilors sounds like a complete logistical nightmare.
It requires immense political will, honestly. And the budgets reflect this tiered, collaborative approach.
How so?
Well, at the localized level, you see seed money. For example, concept studies evaluated at around $70,000 were launched by the CMM for a beach park project.
Which is how municipal budgeting works, right? That $70,000 for a concept study is basically the required first step to unlock much larger federal and provincial infrastructure grants down the line.
Precisely. And as you scale up, the numbers get much larger. The rehabilitation of the banks and the local paving involves several $million, which is integrated into the metropolis's 3-year capital works program.
Right.
We know the River Promenade works officially kicked off in May 2025, but all of this local and municipal spending is orbiting around a much larger gravitational pull.
You mean the RM mega project?
Yes. The RM is a staggering $7 billion plus infrastructure investment.
$7 billion. Wow.
Yeah. The integration of the local surroundings to support that specific Nuns Island station is what truly anchors and justifies these localized cycling initiatives.
I see.
The massive federal and provincial investment in the train creates the political and economic cover to completely rebuild the local street grid.
So billions of dollars are flowing into and around this single island.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond the obvious aesthetic upgrades, what is the actual economic fallout? Like, what is the ROI for the people living there and the local businesses?
The economic impact proves that this initiative isn't just about, catering to cycling enthusiasts.
Right.
The primary economic driver here is densification. When you create a highly connected intermodal station surrounded by world-class green infrastructure, you completely skyrocket the residential appeal of the area.
Because you're offering a lifestyle where it's incredibly easy to move globally via the train, but it's beautiful to exist locally on the island.
Exactly. And that increased accessibility directly stimulates local real estate valuation.
Of course.
But it also profoundly changes the microeconomy of the island itself. Think about it. When a suburban population is trapped in cars, their economic activity tends to leave the neighborhood.
Right. They commute off the island, they buy their coffee downtown, work, maybe go to a big box store on a highway and commute back.
Right. But when you shift the axis so people are on bikes and walking to a local train station, they move much slower through their own neighborhoods. They do. And that slower movement directly drives foot traffic to local businesses, particularly in areas like Point Nord on the island.
That makes total sense. It is infinitely easier to pull a bicycle over on a whim to buy a coffee or grab a pastry than it is to navigate an SUV into a tight commercial parking lot.
Oh, 100%.
Good thing.
And on an individual household level, it saves the residents a fortune.
Oh yeah, cars are expensive.
Owning, maintaining, insuring, and fueling a personal vehicle is one of the massive household expenses in North America. By providing a viable year-round alternative that seamlessly connects to a high-speed rail network, the city is effectively putting thousands of dollars back into the pockets of its residents every single year.
So what does this all mean in the end? We've talked about automated induction loops, the friction of intermodal transit, the removal of mid-century concrete barriers, and these multi-billion-dollar budgets.
Yeah, it's a lot.
If we had to distill the ultimate lesson of Nuns Island for, say, someone studying urban design right now, what is the core takeaway from these sources?
I think the core takeaway is that Nuns Island is currently serving as a highly successful living laboratory.
Okay.
It is definitively proving that when you seamlessly connect localized active mobility like dedicated year-round bike paths with high-speed mass transit, you do far more than just shorten the morning commute.
You completely alter the socioeconomic ecosystem of the neighborhood.
You do. You enrich the local microeconomy by capturing foot traffic and boosting real estate. You enrich the environment by measurably lowering the carbon footprint and mitigating the urban heat island effect.
Yeah.
And perhaps most importantly, you enrich public mental health by dismantling oppressive concrete barriers and replacing them with accessible, interactive nature.
It really is a remarkable blueprint. They took the usually murky, reactionary process of urban planning and used hard data to force a clear path forward. They found the pulse of the island, widened the necessary arteries, and built a system that finally works with the residents rather than against them.
And this raises an important question for the future.
Oh.
Yet something for everyone listening to think about as they look at the infrastructure in their own neighborhoods.
Okay.
If replacing car-centric concrete barriers with intermodal transit networks, specifically bikes efficiently linking to high-speed rail, can fundamentally revitalize and connect an isolated geography like Nuns Island, could this exact micro-to-macro blueprint be the ultimate key to saving struggling, disconnected suburban satellite towns all across the globe?
Wow. That is a phenomenal thought to leave on, rethinking the suburbs entirely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll catch you all next time as we keep unpacking the ideas that are shaping our world. Stay curious.
Thank you for watching this video. For more news and in-depth reports, visit wikiresidence.ca. All our content is available in text and audio formats across all your devices. Please feel free to share your comments with us.